Okay.
Alright.
Well, let's move on to Viserys II. He reigned from 171 to 172 AC. His alias, I don't know, the Hand, I don't know. His father was Daemon Targaryen, and his mother was Rhaenyra. And yeah, the last Targaryen survivor of the Dance of Dragons, Viserys, was supposed to have died in the battle in the Gullet, but was rather, allegedly, captured by the kingdom of the Three Daughters and brought to foster with the wealthy Lyseni banker named Lysandro Rogari. While their ward, he fell in love and married Lara Rogari and brought her with him to King's Landing when he finally was ransomed back. She bore him 3 children, but was unhappy in Westeros and returned to Lys shortly thereafter. After he came back, he showed himself to be a shrewd steward and was Hand of the King for both his brother Aegon the Emo and his 2 sons Daron and Baelor. When his last nephew died, with no heirs, he was chosen to be king instead of his niece Dana, in fear of another dance. In his reign, however short it ended up to be, he managed to establish a new royal mint, strengthen trade relations across the narrow sea, and make much-needed revisions to the laws that had been made under the rule of Jaehaerys the Conciliator. Viserys, however, died quite suddenly of an illness, only a year after he had ascended the throne, leaving his 3 now grown-up children, Aegon, his sister and wife Nerys, and their brother Aemon the Dragon Knight. So, lemon cakes.
I'll give him 5 out of 5. Actually, no, 4 out of 5. I just remembered he didn't do much about his son.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give him a solid 4 lemon cakes. He did rule for a good 11 years, so... No, 15, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd give him 4 as well. I think he did a lot of useful stuff and got a lot more done in that 1 year than a lot of people in more time, so...
Yeah, I'd give him like a 3.54. He did send Aegon away after Naharis almost died from childbirth, so he'd leave her alone. So he clearly cares about people.
That's more than most Targaryens, I think.
Well, I would give him 4 lemon cakes for being Hand, but 2 for being king. Like,
really?
Yeah, because he wasn't like the best king. I mean, and he only had 1 year to do it plus.
But that's not his fault though.
Yeah,
I feel like for 1 year, he did an awful lot in that time, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
just basically undoing what Baelor had done just takes time, right?
Yeah. I think he got out of that year what he could. So.
Yeah.
I think you're just. Yeah.
So you're deducting 2 lemon cakes for his dying.
No, I'm just saying he has 4 when he was a Hand, but his kingship only warrants 2. So I give him 2 separate.
So like 6.
No, I'll give him 2 separate. So 1 is 4 before he ascended as king, and 2 when he is king.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Doesn't it? Because you can't. Because right now we, as before, we've been rating their reigns as kings.
Yeah.
And his reign as a king is 1 year with.
Sure, but do we rate how good of a king he was for the time he had, or do we rate the overall effect?
Yeah, I would say whatever he did as a king has an overall effect for me, at least. I would divide the 2, just because a lot of the things he did while he was Hand was, you attribute it to probably being him, but you don't know for sure. First of all. Second of all, there's a lot of things he did when he was a hand that he could not do when he was a king. For example, murder his nephews with poison.
He didn't do that.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Well,
How?
keep in mind that Baelor was prone to stupid things like fasting without food for multiple days.
41 days.
30, yeah, that is well beyond
that doesn't kill a
Jesus
person.
standards.
Well, didn't Gandhi do the same thing?
Well,
Baylor was no Gandhi.
wasn't crazy.
Wasn't he? Isn't Gandhi also into pacifism?
That's
Oh my
not
God.
crazy.
Don't compare Gandhi with Baelor. Don't do this.
But the thing is, he already had Baylor already had a history of that, right? He'd almost died when he'd done that once before, and this time was just one too many. And you can't just because a person dies young, you can't just say it was murder. Like, that's
Well-
not enough reason.
Well, the thing
Would
is,
you have really
that-
blamed him if it was murder?
I would not if he had killed Baylor.
The man was throwing his life away and their realm. I wouldn't have
It's
blamed him
still
at all if it
kinslaying.
was true.
It's still kinslaying, which is wrong.
Ugh, you would have made a great Northman, Patrick, but
Well, thank you.
no place in politics.
No, I'm just saying that
Agreed.
there's also other tales of him possibly poisoning them. For example, the people that Baelor appoints as those people were also they mysteriously died, like short into their.
One of them died.
Yeah, the little
That's-
kid survived.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
but the other one died.
Well,
But I could see several people who would
died
have
a
an
lot.
issue with a ridiculous high step and would maybe consider getting him out of the way. I think, and there's enough people who would have an interest in that.
I think the bigger thing to take 2 points off of is he got himself killed by his own damn son.
Did he?
Yeah, they say that
yeah,
it's
probably.
widely thought that Aegon IV poisoned him. It wasn't just some sudden illness.
Do you think Aegon
Yeah,
IV
so
is competent
that's right.
enough to pull off like a killing of his father?
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, there's
Okay.
without question.
there's
Wow.
nothing
All right.
to indicate that he wasn't. They even say he was very witty and very charming and stuff. He must have been intelligent, though mercurial in nature, anyways, right? He
Yeah,
can-
they say, I mean, in the beginning it says that he was very skilled in sword and lance. He was a hunter, a hawker, and he was learned.
he was basically Henry VIII.
He was
Well-
basically Henry VIII.
Yeah, well, let's save that for when that section comes up, because we have a lot on that.
But yeah, I mean, I believe that he killed him for sure.
But the thing is,
He had the
it's
same
just that
mysterious
the
and
first
sudden
time-
illness as John Aaron.
No, but it says that the first time those rumors were written down was after a decade after he died. So I don't think it's really.
Yeah, but it also says that they were floating around. No one put them to pen until 9 years later
Maybe.
because
But
they
that's a
feared
long
Aegon.
time after. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know for sure, but I would believe both of those things. I would totally believe that Viserys poisoned Baelor, and I would totally believe that Aegon poisoned him in turn. Maybe
Oh,
even
yeah,
learning
he
it from
could have
him.
Aegon. I would totally believe that Aegon could have done it because I mean, if a person hates his own son, it's entirely possible that he hates his father too. So, but I don't know if he actually did it or not.
Okay, so I have a question because Michael, who's supposed to do this section, he is probably not woken up from his nights of sleep yet. He's from Australia, and they're a bit behind.
They sleep at night.
They sleep at night.
Crikey.
I don't know.
Barbarians.
Who are behind. But...
Well, so I was wondering, do you even believe that Viserys is actually who he says he is?
What?
elaborate,
Well,
please.
I'm sure
Whoa,
the third.
you're blowing my mind right now.
I'm just saying,
This could be true.
Viserys
Wait,
was
elaborate.
captured by the Kingdom of Three Daughters and brought to foster with the Lyseni banker. But who knows if it was even him? It could be anyone with Targaryen blood.
How
Well,
old
he
was
seemed-
he when he
wait,
was captured?
but-
How old was he?
He was like
anyone
5
remember?
or something.
7?
His egg hadn't hatched yet. He was way too young to fly off
Yeah.
into.
Actually, no. I think it is him.
Why?
Because at the same time, his brother Aegon and the two were very close. They were still. Aegon was like only about like a year or so older than him.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he would have recognized his own brother because it wasn't that long that they were separated.
So, Paul, how good
That's
is your
true.
memory from when you were 6, 7 years old?
Pretty
I
good.
remember pretty much everything
You-
from when I was 6, 7 years old.
See,
Yeah.
that's
I
why
remember quite a lot.
That's where I have to like.
Just because you got bad memory doesn't mean.
No, I mean, it's proven that people do not remember like
Anything
anything
from
from when they were children. Like
Well,
they
I
have,
do,
they
but
Oh,
have,
that's true. That's
they have
That's
memories.
before
I
you
but
remember
they're not
what
living
my
correct
family
memories.
looks like because I saw them every day back then, though. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean,
If I haven't
like
seen them in years, I
Patrick,
might
you're
not
definitely
remember.
right. Like a lot of memories people have are shit, and a lot of memories are reconstructed, especially from early childhood. So even you having memories from early childhood doesn't necessarily mean that things happened that way and that those memories are accurate. But I feel like recognizing your family members.
Well, you can't know.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can't know because this guy, he was taken before he entered like
Puberty.
puberty, so he would have changed
Yeah.
a lot from then to there. You just
Yeah,
need
not
someone who
seen.
looks.
Yeah, seen a
Sort of
person
like
as
him.
a child.
Right. How long
You don't
was
have
he
to
away?
recognize that person- You don't have to recognize that person's face, right? If a person remembers certain things that you also remember, then that's enough to prove to a person that this is indeed your brother.
That's also true.
A lot of things could have.
And you don't have to recognize them by face. You don't have to recognize them by face.
No, but if you didn't really question it because you thought you don't recognize them, then what proof
But
do you really have, like,
would
of
Aegon-
other memories?
Well, and there's not really any like discussion about people doubting who he was.
That's true.
And that has to account for Aegon vouching for him, and Aegon probably kind of making sure that this was his brother, seeing how many things his quote-unquote brother would remember as well from their childhood.
You don't.
Or
Because they're
lords
only in
that
their
remember
teens.
him, like lords that remember him as a baby
Yeah.
or a child, could recognize
The
him
Valerians
because you don't
would certainly
change
recognize him.
I'm just.
completely from childhood.
I'm just saying that a lot of these memories are corrupted, and when you think of a person, how many real reference points can you point to sort of consolidate
Okay. So,
a relationship that happened when you were 6 or 7 and they were 5
He
years
was-
old?
no, he was 7. He was 7 or 8. Viserys was 7 or 8.
7
So
or 8.
Aegon was even older.
Yeah, so
yeah.
he was
I
9.
think that's enough to form a good, like, 7 or 8, you remember pretty much everything.
I'm just saying that it happened all very sudden. Nobody knew that he was alive, and suddenly, whoop, there's Viserys, and it just seems suspicious to me. So I'm just.
I don't think Aegon III would have accepted him as his brother if he wasn't sure.
Aegon
And I
the
feel like
Third
there would
was
have
the-
been
was the-
enough people around who would have, like, someone would have said something.
No, all
Someone
of them
would have noticed.
was dead. Aegon the Third.
Weren't there any lords or anyone at all who would have known him as a child?
Aegon the Third was a train wreck. all the
Corlys
others-
Valerian would have recognized him, and he was a fairly
Yeah.
competent man.
Yeah, but it's still a
Unless
lot
he
of.
was in on it.
I don't
What
think so- I
benefit
don't
would
think
he
so, but-
have to pass off a Lyseni as his
Yeah.
king?
Or
There's not really
or
any benefit
he
for it.
might have just simply not remembered or not thought of it either. Because memory is a funny thing, and as you get older, for some people, it really does start to go. And it had been, 15 years or so?
But the thing is, I mean, we hear in almost every King's history, it says, oh, there were rumors that this might have happened and this person might have killed this person. And Daeron, it said that Daeron the second was the son of Aemon the Dragon Knight and not Aegon the Unworthy and whatnot. But this particular rumor is never mentioned. So I'm assuming because it was not a thing, like it was very accepted that this was indeed Viserys. So there must have been some kind of confirmation for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I certainly never thought of it before. Now, Patrick, I think, could be, could not be. I don't know what that really means ultimately, though.
I'm just not sure that Oakenfist was close enough. I mean, of course, his father would have been. I mean, the sea snake would have been.
Targaryen would have recognized him.
But yeah, I'm just saying that there is a lot of years unaccounted for, and a lot of things could have happened. We know right now, as we know that George wants to do parallels between then and now. Why couldn't it be like a Fagin thing? They train him to be a really good king, but also.
His sisters were probably still alive, right? Rhaena and Baela Targaryen.
Yes, they were.
They would have recognized their brother because they were definitely old enough, like when he was captured. So, I mean, three of his siblings were still alive when he returned.
Weren't they even younger than he was?
No, they were older because they were from Daemon Targaryen's first marriage.
You know what, though? The more I think about it, it could be possible, and it does go in line with a long-standing crackpot theory that goes around in the fandom, which is that not just Rhaegar, but there were many, many, many Targaryen kings that believed in the prophecies of the prince that was promised. And we know from Myrcella, right? She's down in Dorne with Arianne, and she's got a look-alike that is so close to her, even in close quarters, that people of living memory in the last couple of years who had actually seen Myrcella could mistake her, let alone someone who left as a child undeveloped and went away for however long. And this isn't a world where they can see a picture regularly or hear that person's voice or know intimate details about them when they live on another continent. If they get someone that looks closely enough to Viserys, then they could slip him in there, and probably no one would have questioned it. And if they said, "Oh, do you remember when we used to do this?" He'd just be like, "No, I was a little kid. What are you talking about? Sorry, I don't remember." That is totally in the realm of possibility.
And I'm just saying that when these Lyseni claimed that they did have Viserys, someone would have verified it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have believed it. Obviously, they would have questioned the child himself, right? If he was indeed Viserys. And he was a hostage for a long time. And they found, right after the war ended, they found out that he was still alive. So it wasn't that long, I think.
It was quite a while.
He returned after he was married, but they did know that he was in Lease.
But he only married when he was 17, right? So that's still 10 years.
Yeah. So again, I'm saying that the face doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if that person resembles, because obviously there's a huge difference between when you're 7 and 17. I think that it would have depended not on his face, but on whatever he remembered, I think.
Yeah, and I'm guessing I'm just putting it out there that I have this theory that Viserys isn't who he says he is, and they would just fit because if he is such a person that's been trained to make this, fill this role, he would also be more inclined to, for example, take the lives of his not family by poison. So I'm just saying, it fits in my world. But
It gives motive to why Lord Valerian wouldn't say anything or be possibly in on it, though, if they wanted to try to wed him with another house that had the blood of old Valyria. Because a lot of these people are motivated, and that's the crackpot theory, by trying to produce the prince that was promised. I don't necessarily believe in that theory, but I think it's just fun. It's super fun.
I mean, yeah, it is very interesting, and it's possible. I wouldn't say I believe it, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it... I agree with you, Nadia, on everything. I think that you're spot on when you're thinking about in very logical terms, but sometimes these books can be illogical, and sure, it could be possible. But I don't know.
Plus, hidden motives can also be a factor that we don't know. I mean, he only shows us what he wants us to be seeing.
Right.
So, but let's just move on to people of interest. I don't have a lot because this was literally one
short.
page. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lara Rogari.
His wife.
Yeah, his wife.
Definitely a odd kind of thing to happen in a medieval society where the wife is older than the husband.
Yeah.
No, not really. We've talked about this before. It happens.
Oh, really?
It definitely happens.
Okay.
Yeah, you got teenagers being wed to babies and stuff.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's essentially was actually more seen than now, because there was both, if your uncle died and he left his aunt, if he left his wife, you could marry her to keep her, like, to make sure that she still have what she needed, whatever. That happened.
Really?
Yes, that happened several times.
I knew the sibling thing. I knew you'd like marry your brother's wife or whatever.
You can also do that. But there's also
among nobility.
Your uncle's wife. I've heard of that happening. Like, I know people that's happened to. So yeah.
Well, really?
That's the thing.
Yeah. So
if you want to keep the inheritance in the family, it is.
Yeah. So also there's another thing. There's also the females, even though they like mature like mentally before men, men are able to have children without any complications earlier than women are. So if they wanted to have a viable heir right away, then usually the woman would be older than the male, just for that purpose.
Look at Sansa and Robert Arryn.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, or Joffrey and Marjorie.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And I was, about Lara Rogari, I was going to say she's the second SOC we've seen that who does this. Doran Martell's Norvosi wife, she is not happy in Westeros, so after her kids are born, and she kind of argues with Doran Martell over their sons, being fostered away, she goes back to Norvos. And again, Lara Rogari is not happy in Westeros, and she just misses home. And she basically, after she has kids with Viserys, she chooses to return to Lys, which is very interesting. SOCs don't like Westeros.
So, yay or nay?
I'll go with yay. She seemed all right.
Yeah.
Maybe they should have. This falls on both her and Viserys, but just kind of making sure Aegon didn't become too spoiled. But they did pretty all right with Nerys and Aemon. So
she didn't stick around to find out what they grew up to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say nay, just because maybe even his proclivity to like find comfort in women's bosoms could be traced back to his lack of a mother. If you want to go all
hit
Freud
the nail on the head there.
If you want to go all Freud on him.
Yep, I have actually notes about that.
Mr. Aegon, I see that your proclivities fall back to childhood trauma involving your mother.
Essentially.
You have.
If only Freud was still around at that time. Still around.
Still around, yeah.
Yeah, he died when Aegon the Conqueror invaded, unfortunately.
Yeah, of the summer.
He's like, oh, well, you hate Aemon so much because you have, instead of penis envy, you have mother's milk envy.
So yeah.
Well, not the Dragon Knight.
Yeah,
Karen.
we know.
Also, the picture of young Viserys with his wife and little Aegon, Viserys wasn't that bad looking.
That's true.
Decent looking.
No, and
Just-
Aegon almost
I
looks
guess-
sweet.
Yeah, I guess it was because the only ever pictures I saw of Viserys were him as a grumpy old man hunched
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a bit more appealing.
Even
but-
grumpy old men can be hot when they're young.
Yep.
The illustration of Lara Rogier looks like Amanda Seyfried.
It kind of does, yeah.
It really does. That's like
yeah,
I
especially
saw
the
that.
hair.
It's the eyes.
From far away, Viserys looks a little bit like younger Orlando Bloom.
Oh
And,
my
like,
god,
it's a
Jodo.
painting, but
Oh.
Prince Aegon looks like he's like not. He's like looking away. It's like a picture, and he's like doesn't want to be there.
He's like
He's
like
looking at the hot
Orlando
assistant
Bloom
of the...
mixed with a Hemsworth brother.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Now that
Sorry.
we've established that.
I mean, the artist probably had some sort of references. So.
Yeah, these
right.
Targaryens need to cut their hair.
So, we don't know much about Lysandro Rogari, but I just wanted to mention him, so we don't even have to do a yay or nay because we don't know anything about him. But Grand Maester Keith.
Oh, we don't know much about Roger, but how about that Grand Maester? Huh?
Well, we do know one thing about him. We know that he snubbed Viserys from the Book of the Four Kings, right? The Four Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
What a bitch.
Nay.
So I would
Okay.
say nay just because of that, because that's...
Yeah, we at least went on for the fact that it might not even be the real Viserys. That's the least
I
he
like-
could have done.
Yeah,
I like how Yandel like totally calls him out on it too. It's like
yeah.
you idiot.
Yandel is a Viserys fanboy. Very upset that his idol was not included.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah, he's like, well, Maester Keith only wrote a paragraph. I'm gonna write 5.
Yeah, so he was lying on his bed in the Citadel, crying into his Viserys pillow. Leave Viserys alone.
a Viserys body pillow.
Yeah,
That's funny.
He's very moe.
It's easy for me to keep my vow of chastity, considering the man I love is gone.
So
and
tragic.
wasn't even live. Hasn't even
Oh,
been
God.
alive while he was alive. Yeah.
Do you ship Visandal?
I do now.
Tanya, that's got to be a card.
Visandal?
Shipping Visandal.
Is it Visandal or Viserys the second body pillow?
Both.
Oh,
Just crying into Viserys' body pillow.
what is this?
The crying makes it. The crying's the best one.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it for this.